Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage, Off Stage. I am your host, George Sapio, and this is episode number 199, March 2026. Eve Kerrigan and Bess Moyer are part of a team comprised of artists, social workers, language translators, and organizers from Creative Pathways, a program that teaches English as a second language to refugees and newly arrived Americans using theater. They employ the tools of nonfiction and documentary theater specifically to help English learners develop their voices literally and figuratively. I found Creative Pathways through an article on HowlRound, which was autobiographical performance for teaching English as a second language, and that led me to Creative Pathways, which led me to you two. And the thing that got me was you put on a show, a full-length show called I Am Home, which was written and performed by your program participants. Let's talk about who your program participants are, and then we'll go in depth into the show itself.
So Creative Pathways serves a specific population. Our program works in conjunction with a local nonprofit in Providence, Rhode Island called Genesis Center, who provides ESL and job training and other services for immigrants, refugees, and newcomers to the state. Many of those people are also receiving benefits because they are among the poorest people in the state. So Creative Pathways specifically is providing ESOL and ESL education with arts integration, specifically trauma-informed, theatrical, and performance-based access, if that makes sense. And we serve the Rhode Island Works participants, who are the poorest people in Rhode Island, and they are all immigrants or refugees or asylum seekers.
What do you estimate the population of that to be?
Demographically, we have served, we currently are serving a lot of Haitian Creole speakers. We have Spanish speakers from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, various other places. We have a Turkish student currently. In the past, we've served Syrian refugees, people from West Africa, in addition to the populations I already named. Yeah, so I mean, kind of, runs the gamut, really.
Yeah, across the spectrum. Okay.
Definitely.
So you recently put on a show called I Am Home.
Yes.
Which, like I said, was written and performed by these folks. Tell me about the show. How did it come about, and how long did it take you to produce it? And what was it like walking into a room of people that are new to you, because that's always a challenge for a teacher to walk into a classroom like that. But when these students are from different backgrounds and languages, because that seems to be quite a challenge.
You're not wrong. Go ahead, Annabeth.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, as a sensitive person, there's a sensory overwhelm because there's people speaking lots of different languages, and trying to communicate with each other, not just through verbal language, but through hand gestures, however they can. And I think actually what makes it less intimidating is, as a person who has worked in theater and has all of kind of, this big toolbox of theater practices or theater tools, it's easier to walk into a room where everybody doesn't speak the same language and get on the same page, because I have all of these other tools of imagery, using your body, using your voice in different ways, using your facial expressions to communicate. And in that way, helps kind of lessen the overwhelmed feeling. And it creates the entry point for all of us, because we're all walking into the classroom feeling a little overwhelmed by what we don't know or what we're unable to communicate.
Yeah, and this is a population of people who are accustomed to not being understood. And so as much as it is overwhelming for everyone, and there's a lot of stimulus and it's chaotic, and there's, great many languages being spoken at one time often, and it can be difficult to get people's attention and so forth. At the same time, the population is weirdly primed to be able to take to the work, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things and one of the outcomes and goals of the program is to provide them with more tools to communicate beyond just words. So they are learning ESO, but at the same time, they're also just learning how to communicate better in general, how to express their needs, how to express themselves effectively in any kind of situation. So we get to do it in this fun way where Bess is doing like improv games, and I also sometimes do improv games, and we do storytelling exercises, and we have these great discussions and so forth. But it's really like they get to take that then into the world and learn how to communicate better. So I think the chaotic nature of the classroom sort of translates really well to like real life in a way later.
Yeah, I know from theater experience that a lot of theater is naturally chaotic, which for some reason we all kind of gravitate towards. I don't know why, because we could be doing something sensible with our lives. But somewhere in that chaos, and especially with folks who need to learn the language, they're in a strange place. They've probably faced hostility. They've probably faced so much frustration in not being able to communicate. And I had one person a number of years ago say the thing that divides people is not geography, it's being able to communicate or not being able to communicate. So it's a very scary position for these folks who are so far away from home, most of them, many of them, involuntarily, right, to face. How do how do you make this classroom welcoming?
Eve alluded to using a trauma-informed framework beforehand. And when we say that, we, you know, what we mean is that all of the instructors, the therapists, the facilitators, the people going in to the classroom acknowledge either openly with the students or with each other or internally that trauma is prevalent. And you just alluded to some of the trauma that may occur in their lives, that we know that with this population, they have suffered quite a bit of trauma. And so the awareness piece is the first piece. The second piece is how we build out the structure within the 2.5 hours that we're with them. So for me, as a drama therapist, I always start with the same mindfulness exercise where we're sitting together and we're breathing together and we're doing a little bit of movement. We move into warm-up games, we go into a greater kind of enactment experiential period, and then we always close with the same activity, which is this magic box where we put in emotions and take out emotions. And so that the framework, they know then, even if they don't know at the beginning of the year when I explain to them in English what's happening, they know 3 weeks in exactly what to expect because they've done it repetitively with me. And with trauma, it's usually too much, too fast, too soon. It's that chaotic feeling. And if you can ground into, I know I'm going to go into the classroom. I know we're going to start this way, then we're going to do this, and we'll always do this. That helps our clients, our students kind of ground in and get a little bit more comfortable and feel a little bit more safe in the room when they know kind of what to expect.
That's the magic word, safety. Being, knowing the routine and knowing what to expect prepares you for what you're walking into, and having the repetitiveness, knowing what you're going to face, takes a lot of the unexpected worry away from you.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of consistency that we have to provide and stability that we have to provide. And we do that, as Bess said, through just routine, just showing them this is how we do it. This is how we're going to do it all the time. They know what to expect. It's also, seeing us, exposure to us over time, right? Like we're new to them when they first come. So we understand like it's going to take a minute, but also seeing each other and what they inevitably always seem to do is quickly form a sense of community with one another in the room. So like maybe outside of our classroom, they have seen one another or are acquainted, but once they come into our classroom, they understand very quickly that this is like their support system in the room. And so there's also that kind of in class connection that they have with each other. It's really invaluable. It's a big part of what we didn't even expect when we started, but like what we've really learned is a huge part of the class is creating the support system and this really nice sense of community. So we get to be part of that. They get to be part of that with each other. And then hopefully when they leave our class, they still have that. And I think that's one of the ways that we can establish a sense of safety and rapport with them. But we do spend, like 2 solid weeks at least just trying to get them acclimated to what the class is going to be like, setting expectations, finding out from them what their expectations are, beginning to do exercises, in the area of what we're going to be doing as we go forward. But, the class becomes more intense the longer we're with them. So it starts out pretty casual, pretty light, but then we do move into some pretty intense emotional arenas as we're with them longer. And we do that as they're ready. So we can tell at a certain point, like, okay, we're there. We have established this rapport with them. They're willing and able to share with us what's been going on with them. They're sharing their stories. They're like really being vulnerable and open to us in the space. And that's a pretty amazing gift to get to that spot. And then that's where we get the material that we're working with in our performances. It's material they generate that they have chosen to share with us and that they know and are excited to like put out there in the world, in one form or another.
Yeah.
But we don't,
Go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah, no, please.
I was going to say, we don't start with tell us your trauma history,
right,
or tell us your migration story.
That's not a good place to start from. Yes,
that's overwhelming. But we do, I mean, we start with heavy metaphor, with different storytelling techniques, with giving them a little bit of space. Tell me your story through a different character,
right?
Giving them an opportunity to step in and show more of themselves, or tell a little bit of their history, but without revealing too much, and giving them that time to reveal when it feels safe for them. And that helps us keep them safe, and also each other safe too, because you don't want to like open up Pandora's box, not just for the person who may be opening up, but also for the others in the room, because they may have experienced similar things in their past, like violence, in particular is kind of front of mind. And the back to your question about the home, I feel like the theme last year was home. It's the I always use the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey in all of my work.
Absolutely, yes.
It's it's the structure that exists in every story ever told and every theater piece ever made. And home is the ultimate destination, and for all of us, going home, whatever that means to you. And I think particularly for this population of new immigrants, new refugees, coming home, being home, going home, that it's a big part of what they're kind of wrestling with, or the destination they're working towards, either internally or externally.
I think what a lot of folks hear when they hear the hero's journey, Campbell's thesis, is that the hero is involuntary. Okay, it's an involuntary journey for the hero, and that is what makes it so tenuous, and what makes it so dangerous is that they are forced from their place of safety, their initial home, where they know what they're doing, they know the language, it's part of their culture, they fit in perfectly, and they are set adrift in foreign and strange places, and they must learn to adjust. Now, arriving home, I wonder, do they go back to this? Do some of them go back to the place where they started from and re-engage their existence? Or like the folks that you deal with, do they create a new home? And what does that mean to them? How do they manage to make a strange place a new home?
Well, I think that's exactly what the piece was about. And I think that was exactly what the focus of the class was about once we realized that was our theme. Because as you say, I mean, I think you said that really well about the hero being involuntary, um, and that it's tenuous and dangerous and all that's true. But I also think it's kind of so universal, which
Mm-hmm.
is why that work still is being done all the time and why it's so essential, I think, to storytelling and theater, because it's so recognizable and it is a required journey that everyone goes on. So, metaphorically speaking, we're all doing it and we're all going to do it and we're going to keep doing it. That's something that we can't get away from, and it's part of how we grow and change as people. And I think that bringing that story to them, or asking them to tell their stories about home, the home of origin, and then looking to the home that they're hoping to create, was very powerful for them because it helped them to articulate their desires
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I don't think that they had ever thought about before. And it helped them to see a version of the future for themselves that was something that they wanted and had some agency over. So while they're, yes, thrown into the maelstrom of life and constantly barraged with like conflict and difficulty and challenges and obstacles, just like the hero and the hero's journey, there's also always going to be this place, this peaceful resolution, even if it's not a permanent resolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we can all create this kind of center of peace for ourselves and for each other. And I think that's what they were looking at. And the idea, most of them know they're not returning to their country of origin. They're going to stay in the US,
Yeah.
hopefully. I mean, that's also, another question, but
Yes.
it's their goal is to be here and
Mhm.
to create something new.
The idea to find something where you can depend on it, have some certainty rather than uncertainty. I
Yeah.
mean, they may adjust here, they may start here, but we don't know if they're going to stay here for whatever reason. And again, learning the language, learning to communicate, learning to say what you want, when you want, how you want it in a timely and efficient manner is key to assimilation in any country you go to. I'm in Costa Rica right now, and my attempts at learning Spanish are hilarious and pitiful, but I'm making my way. And little bit by little bit, people are understanding me, and people are, I've got friends, folks in the hardware store love me because I'm so amusing. But the more I learn to assimilate, the more I learn to speak the language, the better life becomes here. Learning the words, learning to communicate is critical. But getting people to be able to communicate, be able to tell their stories. You said you were using pantomime at some point. I saw this in the article. Learning to communicate without words is something universal because pantomime is a part of almost every culture's storytelling. Okay, you make shapes with your face, you make shapes with your body, you turn into different things, you become other things. How prevalent is that in what you're doing?
I would say, especially in the beginning when we're starting to explore what things look like, what do characters look like? What do
Mm-hmm.
emotions look like? What do experiences look like? I often default to creating tableaus or frozen images with
Okay.
our bodies. Um, and then it kind of gets worked in later as we get closer to a performance. They start to understand that when you perform in theater, you are telling a story not only through your voice, but also through your body and also through your facial expression. So it's definitely something. It's a tool that we use pretty early on. One, as an accommodation for the folks in the room that can't speak English, that don't
Mm-hmm.
yet speak English,
Yeah.
but also as a tool for them to better express themselves and learn the language of theater, because the language of theater, as we know,
Yes.
is not just through the voice.
Language of
Yeah.
theater is largely physical in so many
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're living or spending time in a place that's not, where you're speaking not your native language, you
Mhm.
know that you default to pantomime all the time. And it's hilarious and bizarre. And I can remember like being in Eastern Europe and trying to figure out where the eggs were in the grocery store and, ma- acting like a chicken because that was what I needed to do to get them to
Yeah.
understand what I was asking for when I didn't have the language. And the people that we're working with are already somewhat accustomed to that. And I think there's a really interesting side effect when this is something that you have to do all the time, is that it actually enhances your sense of empathy because you become much more observant about people's faces and their body language and how they respond to you and how they interact because you're having to use those tools yourself all the time and you're having to
Mhm.
get context clues and really like pull from how people are behaving. So I actually, again, think the population is interestingly kind of oriented nicely towards that. And it's a comfortable way for them to enter into the work. Also we do a lot of writing and storytelling with this group of people. I say storytelling because not everybody in the class is always literate.
Mhm.
So writing is not always an option, but we do want them to tell their own stories. And we do work with them to convey those stories in a variety of ways beyond just the dry facts, right? And it's something that we've encountered a lot with the students when we first start getting them to articulate verbally their stories. They're very fact-based and very literal. Everything
Yeah.
is very literal. Metaphor is a little bit beyond them to start off with, but physically they're more expressive, right? Over time, they also become verbally more expressive and they learn to use metaphor in their language and how they express themselves. We were working yesterday on sensory language and what that sounds like, what different words connect to the different senses and how those words can transport someone into the time and place of a real story, right? So just telling somebody the bare bones directions of how something happened versus bringing in your physical and emotional experience and the impact that that can have, right? So,
Right.
these are all scalable, scaffolded levels of sophistication that come in as we work with the students longer and longer, they get more stuff. But at the beginning, yeah, they're very reliant on the
Mhm.
physical ability to express themselves.
Yeah.
And it's so great because they really need, again, as you know, if you're speaking a foreign language, one of the greatest barriers to learning that language is your own shame and embarrassment about being heard, like being comfortable
Yeah.
sounding ridiculous. Like I speak Spanish at like the level of an 8-year-old or if that, and so it's very difficult when you have the intellect of an adult and you have to communicate like a small child. It's embarrassing. You don't want to be heard, but
Mhm.
these people don't have the luxury of being embarrassed about how they sound.
Right.
And over time, the physical activities help them to relax and they kind of break through that barrier of being worried about how they're being perceived. They're not embarrassed. They don't care about being cool. They don't care about the
No.
the way it looks. They just want to be understood. So that is a very powerful motivator
Mhm.
and they're willing to use all the tools at their disposal for that.
How many languages do the two of you speak or
I
know
speak
of, can communicate in?
I speak English fluently. I speak Spanish somewhat. I'm better at listening than at communicating.
Mhm.
And I speak like the worst Czech you've ever heard also.
Yeah, I would say I speak English and I can read quite a bit of Italian, Spanish, French because I took
Mhm.
many years of Latin, which gave me
That's
the
helpful.
ability not
Yeah.
to speak things, but to be able to read
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I
Yeah.
have heard that from so many people. And yeah, even though I went to 12 years of Catholic school, nobody bothered to teach me Latin, but everybody else I know seemed to, oh, I took 2 years of Latin and now I can speak all the Romance languages. And like, No, that's not fair.
Mhm.
But being able to at least understand what somebody else is trying to say or what you think they're trying to say is critical. How many students in your classes here, in your groups?
Currently we have, I think we have like 14 registered.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we actually get that many in the room at any given time
Right.
is a big question. It's unlikely that we have that many people at any given time. I'd say we tend to average around 8 people in the room these days. Last year, we had a little bit larger cohort. I think we've seen a decrease because of the decrease in funding all around the state and
Mm-hmm.
the freeze on immigrants coming into the country. So we've seen a decrease in, our student body a little bit, but
Yes.
last year I think we had originally 22 people registered, but again, we never had 22 people in the classroom. I think, we would kind of have like 15 or
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
so that's just seems to be where we hover.
Can you talk about the stories that your students told when in the show I Am Home? What they shared, what they wanted to communicate with everyone else?
Looking at it overall, the Creative Pathways program and the making the theater piece itself, what I saw or what I witnessed last year was that with this population, they are so focused on survival because
Yeah.
they've just moved here to the United States and also are struggling with poverty. They often aren't thinking about their hopes and dreams for the future. They're thinking about like, how am I going to get my children fed? How am I going to get to the Genesis Center? How am I going to get through the day? Making theater opens the possibility to make believe, to think about the future, to reminisce on the past, and to do that collectively. For me, that was one of the most powerful things to witness in all of the scenes. One of the things that really always kind of brought me to tears was we had maybe 4 or 5 of our participants write letters to their children. So everybody in the program has children or grandchildren that they immigrated with, and we had them write letters to their children. And then on stage, we had the student paired with a professional actor, and they got to read either in their native language
Mm-hmm.
or in English a letter to their children. And the letters were beautiful and heartbreaking in that I think that everybody said, like, I worked really hard to get you here so that you had more opportunity than I did,
Yeah.
so that you have a better chance at a
Hmm.
full, beautiful life. And it wasn't like a huge, it's a simple life, but like a happy life. It's hard to talk about
Yeah, I'm
without
sure it
breaking
is.
down.
There
Truly.
must be so much emotion in these stories that they're sharing with their cohort. I'm sure they develop a simpatico and a safety within their own group that they're now speaking to friends. They're speaking to people who are just like them.
And it's so, for me, like, I'm not yet a parent, but that piece feels also very relatable. I
Yeah.
think that anybody that
Right.
has children understands the desire for their children to live a better life than they had and
Mm-hmm.
to be happy and taken care of. And I think right now, in the current climate around immigration, it feels like a really powerful message to be
Yeah.
sending. Like, don't you, of course, like, can't you connect to this desire to give your children a better life? Wouldn't you do
Absolutely.
anything and
Yeah.
everything to ensure that that happens? Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a very, I agree. I think that is also one of my favorite parts of the performance that we did in the spring. Just the letters were incredibly powerful. I mean, our students told so many aspects of their stories. They told their immigration journey stories. Sometimes it was very literal, like I flew here and I had never seen snow before. That was like a very common experience that they shared and that they
Mm-hmm.
talked about. And, just the culture shock and the shock of, being in this strange place. There was a lot of that. There were lots of stories about their hopes for themselves for the future too, like what kinds of jobs they would like to have and what kinds of lives they would like to make for themselves. They definitely shared a lot about that. We explored through different prompts a lot of stuff from the past that were positive things, things that they loved about their country of origin. And they talked a lot about, and that was another very emotional and moving part, I think, of the performance, were when some of the students talked about how much they loved Haiti and how much they miss it and how they will always love it so much. Again, that really gets me. It like chokes me up every time because,
Yeah.
they know that that's over. Like they can't do that anymore. They're not going back to that. That's never coming back. But there is this like core of beauty that they will always hold in them. And there's just this kind of realization like, oh, the Haiti that they love lives with them. So they get to share that with their kids, even though their kids will never experience it in the same way.
Yeah.
That stuff is very, very powerful. This year, and with our new cohort, we've shifted themes a bit, and we're talking about past, present, and future.
Hmm.
So we've, explored stories about, yes, the difficult things that made them leave their countries of origin, and some of it has been really heart-wrenching and difficult to hear, and there's a lot of violence and pain.
Yeah.
But they also share stories about, again, the food that they love and the family that they miss and the family that they had to leave behind. Grandparents come up a lot, and parents who are not with them anymore, but these really happy and joyful memories that connect to those people. So, I mean, they're really so incredible and expressive. And through their storytelling, like one of the things that came up this fall that was really interesting is a lot of students, through one exercise, started sharing these really intense stories with everyone in the room. And they got vulnerable very quickly. And I remember just thinking, this is amazing. Like, I didn't expect them to go there so
Hmm.
fast.
Yeah.
But then, because they were so willing and open, and as soon as one opens up, it unlocks the other students. It's so crazy. They see it and they go, okay, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And then they start sharing with each other. And then it became clear that a couple of moms in the room had been dealing with some struggles around having autistic children.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's not something they would have known about one another if they hadn't been in that space and been willing to have this difficult conversation and share these difficult things that they were writing. And it was so meaningful to the other parents to see that they were not alone, and oh my gosh, you're going through this too. And now their bond is so strong. Those two moms are always in communication with each other. They're good
Yeah.
friends, and it's like just this extra beautiful little thing that we could not have predicted that they get out of being in this space and being willing to tell their story, explore with one another in a safe environment. It's so powerful to have that sense of community.
You're creating a new family out of disparate
Mhm.
ones.
It's true.
These women who now have something they can share because they're alike, and all of a sudden they're less alone than they were, and they have somebody who understands them. That's a priceless gift. It really is.
And isn't that like life experience 101? Like our experiences are often so much more closely related. They're more similar than they are different.
Oh
And
yeah.
being in the room
Yeah.
and realizing we have the same things going on, it's just, it can unite us as opposed to dividing us like we see so much of the
That's
time these days.
that's how I see theater, because theater is the telling of the same stories. It's either fear, love, need, danger, something, some element of this hero's journey that we have to go through, told by people who are not like us, or told by people who are different than us in some way, and yet beyond all the stuff, the dressing, the flavoring, it comes down to the same basic need that we all have. And I think
Hmm.
theater is a beautiful tool. It's an amazing tool for diminishing the distances between strangers and
We,
finding ways to take people who are strangers in a strange place and letting them know they're not all that alone.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, if you take that story from the classroom and communicate it in the classroom and end up with this connection. And then you take that into a theater. How many people in that theater are sitting there listening to this and going, oh, I thought this was my unique solitary experience that I've been struggling with all by myself. And now I can see that that isn't just me. And it's not even people that are necessarily, experiencing the same immigration situation. It can be anyone. I mean, these stories are highly relatable, as Anna Bess said, how can you not relate to trying to help your kids through a difficult time or trying to provide your family with something better than what you had?
Yeah, we may be strangers, but we're not that different.
Exactly.
So what kind of support does your program get from the community? I mean, how is it received in the community? Do you have folks who come in and assist you with your programs who?
Yes. Yes. So I can just give you a little rundown of kind of who is involved. We have a big team actually to support this program. So the facilitators of the classes are Anna Bess, myself, and Noga Paulino, who is doing the ESL component. And so we teach the classes, but then we also have a supervisor who works with us and is very supportive. We also have the ESL manager who also works to help create the programming for that component of our class. Then we bring in visiting artists. So we have a whole roster of visiting artists that have come, and we have on the books to come this year to work with our students, and they're from all media. So we've had fiber artists and installations and sculptors, and we've had painters, and this guy in Rhode Island who's really well known, who has this company that makes these intense puppets, has come to work with them. And we have artists from all over the art world basically coming in to work with these students and give them an opportunity to try all different things and to pull stories from them in new ways. But we also have our support from the Department of Human Services, who funded the program. They're very enthusiastic, and they really are excited about the public facing stuff we do, because it helps to put a human face on everything that is happening in these nonprofits and this sector, right? They love that we can come out and say, look, this is the face of immigration. Immigration is this. It's these people who are struggling, who are having these really relatable experiences and are going through it, and they're telling their stories, and they make beautiful art, and they are incredible. They love to be able to say that, because we know that's true, but the world doesn't always know that's true. So we get a lot of support from that side of things. We have a cinematographer who works with us, who documents a lot of what we do so that we can cut it together and create these beautiful videos. I think you've seen one of our videos, maybe. I'm not sure. If not, I will send it to you. We've hired directors like Ash Marinaccio, who was the host of the podcast on Howl Round. She was our director for the I Am Home production last spring. We've worked with a local theater last spring, which is a bilingual theater. So they do Spanish and English theater, Teatro e Cas. So we get a lot of support, and we try to work within the community as much as we possibly can, because we want to make friends there and have them champion what we do. Arts, Culture, and Tourism in Providence has come on as a partner, and they've been helping us with securing space and those kinds of relationships, around town that help us to create more viable productions that, allow us to get out into the community even more.
That's great. It's I think what a lot of people don't expect is the level of support you get from the community once you ask. It's startling sometimes. It's heartening.
And just how much support a program like this really does need. I mean, we have a social worker who does evaluations and assessments and comes in and works with our students, and it's pretty in depth. There's a lot of people that go into making this possible.
Oh nobody does this by themselves. There's always dozens of people who contribute in so many different ways. It's nice to be able to. I'm glad that you have so much support in in the area. I got one last question for you, and it pains me to even think that I even have to ask something like this, but with the climate that's going on today when it comes to immigration and people new to our country who are just looking for a better place to be, is Providence experiencing anything that's similar to what's going on in Minneapolis and other places?
Maybe not to the extent right now that Minneapolis is. I mean, what's happening there is so incredibly intense, but definitely we are aware and mindful and vigilant about, ICE being in our state, and people are worried. The executive orders have certainly made things more challenging. We've had a number of students and even people who work for some of the organizations that we work with have, had some struggles around this because executive orders have changed people's statuses and made it hard for them to receive benefits that they depend on. That's a big one. We're really seeing that, and that's about to happen again in February. A lot of people are going to lose their SNAP benefits. So we have a food pantry in our room. We collect donations, and we do what we can, at a personal level. But yeah, it's affecting us in the state of Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island is pretty great because we have so many different entities that are working together to try to support this population. It's a whole thing. So we're lucky. We've also been, at the center of filing a lot of the lawsuits that have been filed to try to slow down or stop the executive orders from taking effect. That's coming out of the state of Rhode Island. We've been doing that. We have, an immigration coalition that works tirelessly. There's a ICE alert, mechanism that is really effective, that is constantly alerting people and trying to keep people safe. There's good people just working everywhere to do the best they can to help. But there, it's never enough. It's like whatever is going on is a pretty big tidal wave. Fortunately, we don't have the violence and the kind of extreme situation that's happening in Minneapolis right now, but we do worry about possibility of that in the future.
Oh, sure. I think people are worried everywhere. That's just a harbinger of the things that could possibly come. But somewhere down on the bottom of my heart, I'm thinking we're going to get past this and we're going to be better than we were before, because we have that capability. And it's largely through folks like yourselves who fight every day just to be human. So I lied before. I have one last question. What do you got coming in the future? Because we talked about I Am Home, that was in the past. We talked about what you're doing with your students. Moving forward, what kind of plans you have for the future?
Well, we haven't officially set the date, but it looks like the first week of June we'll perform our new show that we haven't titled yet, but as Eve said, the theme is past, present, and future. We are working with Community Music Works to make an original song that will be in the performance. And we're working with a choreographer, so there's going to be some dance in the performance this year. And then we'll be collaborating with a local theater and actors, professional actors, to help support us. And then another really exciting thing is that Creative Pathways now has expanded to a new site. So Creative Pathways now is at CCAP in Cranston, Rhode Island. They now they have their own Creative Pathways program, which is running 4 days a week, and we're just really excited to see our program expand to other agencies to serve more people.
That's wonderful. Absolutely
comprehensive
wonderful.
Community action program.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, that is very exciting. That's happening. Not only are we doing our spring performance with this group of people that we have now, which we're very excited about, but we also are going to be having a retrospective exhibition of artwork from all of our Creative Pathways students in the late summer or early fall at the State House Municipal Gallery here in Rhode Island. That's kind of exciting. We did an art show in December And the artwork was just beautiful that they created, and people loved it. And so we decided we wanted to collect all of that artwork plus the artwork from the students that preceded this group
Mhm.
and get them to show it in the gallery there and have a little opening and all that. So that's another thing we have coming up.
That's wonderful. That's so amazing. You guys do some excellent, wonderful work. Please continue to do it. I know times are tough and the work isn't easy, but you're giving so many beautiful gifts to so many people who need them. Eve Kerrigan and Bess Moyer, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk with us today. And yeah, we wish you the absolute best in what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so grateful to be here.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to On Stage, Off Stage. On Stage, Off Stage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffStage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project or interest, or know of someone in the theater world who'd make good chat, by all means, send us a note at onstageoffstagepodcast@gmail.com. Our theme music is Don't Worry, Be Frappy by the composer Max Dickinson. You can find a lot more of Max's magnificent music on SoundCloud. I'm George Sapio. Thanks once again for listening, and please be kind to those with whom we share this rock. And as always, happy theatering to all of you.